So, this is Christmas Day in the year 2020, and during the Christmas season, I often reflect upon the meaning of Christmas for folks who are Christians. And this is partly because of the fact that, I'm in the United States, which is a very Christian country, and I live in a part of the country that's especially oriented toward the Christian religion, being in the southern part of the United States, which is sometimes referred to as the Bible Belt. And it was in this part of the country that I was living at the time back in 1979 when I had my so-called spiritual awakening or conversion experience, in the context of which I shifted from having no particular religious orientation to having an experience that was undeniably profound and meaningful and deep and powerful that I really wanted to understand. And as I've described in another video, in the context of my trying to understand that experience, I evolved toward an understanding of Buddhism and an appreciation for Buddhism, and ultimately an orientation toward the Buddhist religion, and in particular the Mahayana tradition within Buddhism. But again, having been in a Christian part of the country and there being no other Buddhists in my vicinity, the dilemma I had in some ways was, how do I communicate this in a way that maybe other folks around me could appreciate or understand? And I indicated, I think, in another video that what I did basically was put together a little volume, a small book, on the story of Jesus, who, of course, is who we're celebrating, or who Christians are celebrating on Christmas Day, his birth. And this story was, though, from my perspective, framed within the Mahayana Buddhist sort of doctrine, if you will, which sounds kind of strange, I know, and maybe arrogant and inappropriate. And for anybody who's interested in what the content was of that story, I did another video sort of describing it. I didn't do a verbatim recitation of it, but I described what I put together as a way, again, of trying to communicate with people who are from a totally different tradition, how a Buddhist might interpret some aspects of the story of Jesus in a way that would be consistent with some of the basic elements within Mahayana Buddhism. Why? Because I really do think that if you want to think in terms of the divine, or talk in terms of the divine, talk in terms of the Nirmanakaya, who is the Buddha body without any sort of form or to whom we can attribute any particular conceptual sort of descriptors, that Dharmakaya, if you want to think of it in Christian terms as the Godhead, again, beyond all names, all words, all concepts, that ultimate divine, if you will, manifests itself in various forms within both the spiritual level, what we talk about in Buddhism as the Sambhogakaya, and within the sort of physical incarnate level, when we talk about people like Jesus or Sakyamuni Buddha. In any case, what I'm leading to and what I wanted to share in this particular video is that at the end of that little book, I put together an epilogue, and in it I recited a number of different sort of, in a way, characteristics of what I thought Jesus was doing, and how I thought he was conceiving of his mission and duty with respect to his orientation towards saving human beings. And of course, he quote, saved them through his sacrifice, in a way analogous in some sense, I would argue, to the kind of sacrifice that Dharmakara made when he was making his vows in the presence of Lokesvara Raja Buddha, and when he was able to fulfill those vows through his sacrifices, and then become Amida Buddha, who is the Buddha who we worship and look to for our salvation within Shin Buddhism, which is my lineage, or the lineage with which I identify at this time. So what I said in the epilogue, and you can listen to these sort of one by one and see what resonates with you, whether you're Buddhist or whether you're Christian, in terms of sort of describing. And by the way, in another video, I talked about Jesus as a Bodhisattva. So you can think of these as describing sort of the Bodhisattva path. I'm doing some recitation now from the Avatamsaka Sutra of some of the stages of Bodhisattvahood. And these things are very aspirational. but again, I think describe in relatively more concrete terms what we humans, how we envision this saving kind of character that we would like to imagine exists within a spiritual realm to give us guidance and to provide us with a certain comfort and assurance, assurance ultimately of our rebirth in some kind of circumstances that are less painful than the ones that we find ourselves in typically within this human existence. So here goes with this epilogue, this series of statements, which again I kind of arbitrarily did in alphabetical order with respect to a key element within them, and so it's what I'll share now. He bore the burden of the suffering of the world. He blew the horn of the supreme law. He broke through all temptation to cling. He brought the joy of the wonderful law to living beings. He called every living being to be his equal. He carried living beings across the painful river of suffering to the other shore of peace and happiness. He cast aside every personal interest. He caught the full meaning of the perfection of wisdom. He came to perfect enlightenment. He did whatever was needed for the sake of universal salvation. He drew living beings toward wisdom and compassion. He drove toward his goals with diligence. He dropped all interfering activities and thoughts. He fell into conformity with the one vehicle law. He got the great vehicle firmly in mind. He gave the profound law to any who wanted to learn. He went wherever seekers dwelt. He hung on to his purpose constantly. He held firm in his determination to liberate beings. He kept the pure commandments of the inconceivable law. He laid down all fixed ideas of existence and non-existence. He let living beings know the truth. He looked into the nature of individual beings and gave what was needed. He made living beings see the benefits of looking toward him. He even now picks tactful methods that suit the needs of individual beings. He pulls all living beings up to his level. He pushes greed and anger out of us. He puts his protective arms around us. He directs all paths toward heaven. He sets in our mind the desire to be reborn in his pure land. He shakes fear and anxiety from us. He shows us the bright light of his infinite wisdom. He skips the hard way and gives us an easy path. He slips within our hearts and guides our lives. He splits that which is truly non-dual in order to teach and comfort us. He stands on the truth of the reality of existence. He stays in his supportive role eternally and forever. He sticks to his salvation promise no matter what. He strikes down all causes of suffering. He takes us to his pure land of bliss if we want to go. He talks to us as individuals. He tears apart the illusion that he and we are separate. He throws his full support behind each of us. He ties our sufferings to himself. He touches us in the depths of our being. He turns us toward him and his glory. He walks with us as we face our duties. He wears the sign of infinite compassion. He works in us, among us, through us, with us, and for us. May we meet and join in his pure land to help him save all beings from every distress. Namo Amida Boots, Namo Amida Boots, Namo Amida Boots.